This was not the same reaction I got from the guys on the set that day.
Correct.
Totally different experience watching it in this room.
And that's why you're here. So it is really interesting, and it goes a lot to who you are. So I've done a lot of work, as everyone here has, on what we expect of women. And there are lots of, this is science. We are uncomfortable with aggression in women. We are uncomfortable with people who are forthright, right? How many women here, I do this every year on the stage, I love it. How many women here have been told they're too aggressive at work? Right. How many of your bosses or your colleagues or your underlings who are men? The answer is none, because I asked this to those audiences too.
And men never even give it a thought, and they never get criticized for going after somebody aggressively.
Correct.
Whereas, you know, if I really have a contentious interview, the word I've heard in some circles is shrill, which I actually looked up, and it's high-pitched and piercing voice. Really? I think that might be motivated by something other than my voice.
Correct.
A different body part, I'm thinking. But I try not to think about that. I mean, I've said many times that I think Bill O'Reilly, who precedes me on our channel, is like a superhero, because if you meet him in person, he's kind of shy. He's quiet. He would never dominate your dinner table. But you put him behind that desk and he grows into this larger-than-life personality. And I have a little bit of that, in that when I sit in front of that desk, it doesn't matter who's across from me. I don't care if it's a Republican, a Democrat, a president, it doesn't matter. I only have one master, and that's my audience. And I will serve that audience. And if you try to dodge or weave, you're going to get pinned down. So I feel very empowered to do that when I'm on the set. In person, I'm not a shrinking violet, but I don't have quite as much power. You know, I don't feel as confident. I was just telling you this in the green room. Cheryl was so nice and introduced me to a bunch of very powerful women who are here by email, because she wasn't here last night. She said, okay, we'll meet in the bar. So I went in the bar last night, and I didn't know anybody, and I was looking around, and I thought, I feel uncomfortable, I'm gonna go back to my room. So how can that woman be that same woman? I mean, I would like to get more homeostasis, but at the office, I find it very easy to own my own power and be my strongest self.
Which I think is a great lesson. And I think a lot of us feel that. A lot of us feel that we can kind of put it on for work, and then you deal with it personally. How do you feel? Have you ever seen a male anchor get the kind of comments, the male equivalent of shrill, whatever that might be?
No. It's a different standard, but I try not to pay attention to that. I mean, I think the gift I had was, even though I grew up in a middle-class family, we didn't come from circles of power. I certainly never, knew any politicians or anybody who had real power. But the gift I had was I went and I practiced law for 10 years. And it was at a big firm, Jones Day, and I used to call it the Olympics of law, where you were really out there defending and cross-examining Fortune 100 CEOs, like some of the women in this room. and that
They were all
me,
on the right side of your case.
The good.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. But that taught me, to stand up and be strong, and it didn't matter where I came from. It just mattered that I got the job done. So I think, when I think about my own daughter, I want her to do something that challenges her, that makes her stand up and fake it till she makes it, because I learned to just be strong. Doesn't matter who's across from you. It's about getting the job done with aplomb, and that translated into my TV job.
So how did you make that shift? You were a lawyer, a very successful one. Why journalism? Why TV?
Well, it's funny to talk about it here. I mean, the short version is I was burnt out. I was about 8 years into it, and I realized I am more interesting than this, and I am more interested than this in terms of what I was doing, which was pushing a lot of paper. All my weekends, all my vacations got burned, overnights, 3 a.m. all the time. And I wanted more balance in my life. Now, at the time, I was married to my first husband, or as I heard recently, and it's a great term, my husband.
Good.
How awesome is that?
That is awesome. As someone who has one also, I really enjoy it.
He's a very nice man. We parted amicably.
Me too. It's still a great term.
He wound up remarried too. I was happily married with children. But I decided that I wanted to change my life. And I looked around and said, okay, I'm not really happy in my job, not really happy in my marriage. What am I going to do? So I got out of the law and I started this new job. And then suddenly I realized, oh, I want to get out of this marriage and start a new marriage as well. But what I'm trying to say is I realized that I could never have a full life with the life I was leading back then, with the profession that I was pursuing back then. There just wasn't time for it. So I wound up going to a profession that does allow for more flexibility. When people say, how do you have it all? I mean, I have a job that allows a lot of flexibility in terms of the hours and the shifts and not that much face time. So that's good for me. If you're in a job that requires 15 hours a day, it's very hard to be the mother of 3 children who are under the age of 6, which I am. I know. There's a child in every room now. But anyway, back to your original question. I got out of the law because I was unhappy, and I managed to befriend a woman in my guitar class, once again, a woman, in my guitar class who had mercy on me. And she was a freelance reporter at WMAQ, which is the NBC affiliate in Chicago, and she said, I will help you. And let me tell you, in TV, you know, a woman helping another woman break in, it's not that common. But she did it. And, you know, in terms of the scale of journalism, my career's, you know, gone like this. And she wrote me the most beautiful, long love letter at Christmas, just saying how proud she was. And it's just, the sisterhood lives.
And this is a great place to talk about that, because I think this conference is about the sisterhood. You're right that the history, especially generations before us, was women not helping women necessarily, because I think the system was set up against them. They knew only one of them was getting promoted, not all, and so there was more competition. I think, you know, hats off to Patty for this conference, bringing all these women together to help each other. It makes a big difference.
Well, I think, you know, one of the other things that my boss told me, which I think everybody here can remember, is it's true in TV, but it's true in your job too. Never, he said, people will imitate you. They will try to do what you do. Never worry about them, because there's only one you. So whatever you're doing that makes you special, they can imitate it, but they can never be the same person with the same delivery and the same gifts and so on. Once you accept that, and then it's not a zero-sum game, you can be more embracing, I think.
And I know you and I have talked about working parent guilt, which we think more moms have. You also have a philosophy you call settle for more. I'd love for you to talk about that. It's a great phrase.
May I just say that what we really don't need as women is men like Eric and Lou tapping into our working mother guilt and making us feel even worse about it.
Correct.
Which is one of the issues I had. It was like, you know what? It's like the overweight person. They don't need us to tell them they're overweight. They know they're overweight. You don't have to stop on the street and tell them they're overweight. You know, working moms do not need to be lectured on what their children need and how it's a tug of war. You're like, you know what? We're experts on it. We don't need you. But my settle for more philosophy is basically the life I was just telling you about, which is back in the day when I was unhappily married and unhappily working, I heard a brilliant man by the name of Dr. Phil say, the only difference between you and someone you envy is you settled for less. And it just spoke to me. It just spoke to me like, yes, that's exactly right. So settle for more was, you know, that was my identity. That was me. You're going to quote it. And I started putting it into practice, Cheryl, and it really did change my life. Instead of wasting energy sitting around looking at someone who I admired and thinking, oh, God, she's got it all. You know, why can't I have it all? She's on TV. Oh, I would love that job. She seems so happily married. I wish I were happily married. I just started to change my life little by little. And success breeds success. When I was practicing law, I was making a lot of money. And I left that for my first TV job, which paid $17,000 a year, which wasn't a lot of money. But if you love something, then you're good at it, and then rewards follow, success follows. And the same is true, you know, in my personal life. I basically had a very sweet, loving husband who was a doctor. I was a lawyer, but I knew I wasn't happy. And we divorced, as I said, amicably, and I wound up meeting a man who was unlike any other man I'd ever met before. He didn't behave like any of the other guys. He wasn't a jerk. So I thought, is this attractive? Wait, yes, it is. I'm going to give him a chance. And we've been happily married now for, I don't know, 10, 12, 8 years. I don't know. It's a long time. And he's an equal partner to me and a critical part of my success in life.
So you're obviously now in journalism. You're settled for more, both personally and professionally. journalism is changing, right?
Yeah.
Like all the things we talked about for Facebook and mobile and social and all of these things. How do you think about journalism? Is journalism struggling? Is journalism going to struggle? What's happening? What's changing even in the time you've been doing
Well,
it?
I think journalism is alive and well, but I think that the way we get and deliver news is changing big time. And I think, online social media or mobile media is really changing the face of what we do in terms of cable. I mean, right now it has a major effect in that there isn't a night that goes by where I don't look online and check our Facebook page, which is awesome, by the way, thanks to Cheryl. But I look at what the viewers are saying. I look at Twitter, sorry.
That's
I look
okay.
at Twitter as well. Facebook has 5 times the reach. And I see the instant feedback from the viewers. So that's one way in which it's really changed what we do, is I will literally ask questions that I get from the viewers real time during the show, or I'll make a point that I forgot to make, or somebody will offer a suggestion, or somebody will say, you have lipstick on your teeth. So it's very helpful.
It's always useful.
Yes, it really is. But I think people are getting their news from social media much more so than they ever did before. So when I go on the air at 9, I have to assume they know most of the day's stories. It's not like back in the day when Peter Jennings was telling you what is going on in the world. They know. They come to the television at 9 knowing. So we have to work extra hard to advance the story and provide more context and analysis. That I think that challenge will grow even greater over the next 10 years.
That's great. I am so excited to have helped introduce the great Megyn Kelly to this audience, because I think, and I just want to say this publicly and thank you, that I think we need more examples of strong women. People will get used to it when they see it, when it produces results. What matters here is not just what you're doing, but how successful it is. And so I think you're setting an example for me and every woman here, as well as my daughter. I want to thank you for being here, and thank you for what you're doing. I think we all owe you.
Thank you for having me. You're the best.